This is Murder in the Family, which was, as I often say, the most fun I've ever had at a laptop. I mean, writing that thing. As I said before, I'm a complete true crime junkie, so I watch loads of this stuff, and I've been really interested about how the good ones, the ones that really compel you, how they're done, not just the content, the story, but how they're done, how the narrative is told, and how in some of the really good ones, it's very disintermediated. There's no narrative voice. There's no voiceover telling you, and then 3 months later, X, Y, Z happened. Sometimes it's just stuff like clips from people's social media, and you're actually watching the whole series, the whole story put together by this type of bits of narrative, as it were. And I suddenly thought, well, maybe I could try to replicate what I enjoy about watching true crime TV on the page. And the one that I watched that I thought was the sort of the model for this was something that's called Wrong Man, which is a Joe Berlinger series, whereby he got together a group of experts. There's a couple of retired cops, there's a lawyer, there's I think a journalist, and he puts them all in a room and gives them a cold case and says, okay, see whether you can solve it. So I said, oh, that was a really cool way to structure the series, so that you then have, instead of chapters, you have episodes, and within each of the episodes, all you're getting is effectively a screenplay of what's happening on the screen. So these people are going through old evidence, they're questioning whether the original investigation missed anything, and getting new evidence as well that wasn't available at the time. Either forensics has moved on or whatever it might be. So that was fascinating in terms just of the interplay between the characters and gradually having them become clearer about what really happened. But the other thing I enjoyed about doing it was the Agatha Christie twist, which came to me quite late in the day, but was a lot of fun. That right at the very beginning of the book, so not a spoiler, we know, though the people involved do not know, that one of the people on the team making this TV show is actually the original killer. So we have the ability to try and work out which one of them it is, which one of them is lying, as well as trying to work out what the motive could have been, how are they connected, what was, so there's lots of layers of investigation for the reader there. And so far, almost everybody who's read it has really enjoyed that part of it and said, it's making me a detective that I really enjoyed. I had all this raw material, I had all these documents and maps and forensic files and everything else, and so I was able to see if I could get there before the team did.
Tell us about Guy Howard and some of the other characters that you cast in this particular.
Yeah. So it's Murder in the Family. It's one of those things that does what it says on the tin. It's about murder in a family of about 20 years before. Very, very wealthy family living in a very nice part of London. And the dynamics of the family at the time was the mother and 3 children. And the mother has recently married a much younger man. And he's the person who gets killed. The 3 children she had at the time, 2 girls and a boy. And obviously there are tensions at the time because of this new marriage and the fact that the father is no longer around, and they're very much missed by the kids. So Guy is the boy, the little boy at the time, but now grown up 20 years later and become a filmmaker. And he's now trying to find out exactly what happened to his stepfather all those years ago, and seeing it, I mean, let's face it, seeing it as a potential career break, that if he can, create a series that's particularly, take well received, then he'll, have a very good sort of career boost out of it. Though there's the other angle of this is that he's allegedly the director, but actually all the strings are being pulled by the producer, who is a very big character in it, a guy called Nick Vincent. And he's very Machiavellian, and he knows exactly how to play the reality TV angle of this, and which he does. And that's one of the things I enjoyed about it, which you don't see on a true crime TV equivalent, where the team gradually turn on each other, which is very much, again, the sort of it's the Agatha Christie idea. As you realise you've got a killer in your midst, you start becoming very suspicious, and they turn on each other in quite delicious ways. I certainly enjoyed writing that part of it. With all of the Fawley books up till now, I've always known who the killer was, and I've at the beginning, I had really, really big synopses. It was almost like a comfort blanket or something that, it's something to hold on to, that I had this synopsis that told me where the story was going. I just had to keep to it. And yeah, things might change a bit, but broadly, that scaffolding remained in place the whole time. But it gradually got less of that as I got better at it, I suppose, or more practiced at it. But Murder in the Family, when I sat down to write it, I did not know who the killer was. I had a short list of 3, and you might well be able to guess who those 3 were if you've read the book. And in fact, there's this whole ghost ending in the book of one of the 3 that it could be, only it turns out not to be. So that's one of the endings that I could have written and left in and carried on. But no, I didn't know who it was. And for the first time, and it was a really nice experience, the first time I had the confidence to let the story tell itself to me, which I hadn't done before. And that was very enjoyable, just to see how the interaction of the characters played, because I only had a very relatively vague idea who the characters all were when I started. I tried to have the experts have quite distinct personalities because, that's just easier for the reader to keep them apart. But I didn't have a sort of 2-page synopsis of anyone's character or anything like that. I just started and saw how they developed when I, as it were, threw plot things at them. The 3 people I thought might be the killer, I didn't have a clear enough idea of who they were or what their motivations were until I started writing them. And then it became crystal clear eventually who it was. But I'm not going to tell you. The series, it's again another piece of luck in that in Hope to Die, the one before that's just come out in America, that one has a true crime series running through it, looking at the old case. And this series is called Infamous. So it's like one of these series where you have this, the umbrella title, and then each time round it's a different case. So in that case, it was the series title was The Chameleon Girl, which is what they were talking about, the girl who had the baby and then the baby disappeared. Whereas this time round, it's the same. So I sort of brought that through from Hope to Die. So this time it's another series of Infamous, but this time we're looking at who killed Luke Ryder. I'm very visual. I don't play anything back, and I very rarely read out what I write. But I've always had a very visual imagination, so I see everything as a TV or a cinematic scene. So I find that helps, especially if you're in this particular book where everyone's most of the time in a room together in the studio, this group of people. So just to imagine the dynamics of the physical movement and who's sitting next to who, I think is, for me anyway, is an important part of it. So I do have sort of pictures in my head of what they look like, but it's possibly going to make it to TV. We've sold the rights to Sam Mendes's company, and I'm going to be absolutely fascinated to see what they do with it, because I know they're going to do something different from simply transposing it onto the screen. It's going to be more than that.